So, hi, I'm Cheryl, co-owner of Educational Freedom, and it's Home Education Awareness Week. And in this session, we're talking to my colleague, Michelle. So, would you like to just explain what you do for Educational Freedom and who you are?
Yeah, so I'm Michelle Zahir, and because I've got a background both in social care, in SEN advocacy, and in legal areas, I primarily deal with the SEN side of stuff, the SEN type of queries, um, jump in on sort of the more legalistic, specific queries at EdFree, and tend to do more of the policy stuff. So I'm more the one in the external meetings to EdFree than necessarily the face on the Facebook group. That's that. I limit my time on the Facebook group, but I'm tending to be doing a lot of other bits in the background.
You're our go-to when we need to understand a piece of law, or we need to know which piece of law or legislation. You're our brain when it comes to all that. And I'd just like to say, on behalf of Educational Freedom, we are extremely grateful you are part of our team and one of our leaders. We would be lost without you. Okay, so we're talking about home education and how it works differently for different people. So could you tell us a little bit about how you came to home educate and how long ago that was?
Right, so I actually wanted to home educate from the start. My son, however, wanted to try school. So I knew about home education because I'd got one of my cousins home educated their children, and I knew a few other people from the local area home educated. So I knew what it was. It wasn't an alien concept to me. So my child also knew what home education was, but they, at the age of 3, pointed out a particular primary school and told me that was their school. And I think it's really important that you listen to children at whatever age they are, and that you reassure them that you'll respect their choices as long as they're safe choices. So you do need to have the boundaries to be clear. I'm sorry, as a parent, I have to say no on that. But actually, where it's actually something as fundamental as I want to go there for my education, okay, give it a go. He came to his own conclusion before the age of 6 that he wanted to be home educated. He loved reception. And then he just wasn't happy. After reception, he just wasn't happy. He was threatened with detentions if he went to use the toilet, even though he needed the toilet. He wasn't allowed access to his glasses. I was constantly emailing the school for this, that, or the other. The amount of times I'd sat in a meeting and they'd be like, and I'd be sat there and the Senko would be like, no, that's being provided. And the class teacher would be like, well, when have I got time to do that for one child? And the Senko would look embarrassed because the Senko and the head teacher had reassured me X, Y, and Z was happening in the classroom. My child was telling me it's not happening. I'm going back, and then the Senko hears my child isn't getting the support they're supposed to be getting is when she sat in a meeting with me, the Senko, and the head and the classroom teacher. And then they're saying, "Oh, well, I'll take that over." So at the very beginning of year 2, my son was adamant he just wasn't wanting to be at school. Unfortunately, I'd started a different job by then, so home ed wasn't so easy at that point because my son had been adamant he was going to school and seemed to enjoy it. So both me and hubby had come up with other plans. So it's like, So we made him have to wait for another half term because, again, it might have just been a phase. And it's like, okay, well, at half term, if you still feel you want to home ed, then we'll rearrange our lives and you can start. He was still clear then he wanted to home ed. So we then said, okay, we need to give us another half term so that I can prepare your friends' parents for the fact you're going to disappear. And so we did. We had lots of conversations with his friends' parents so that they all understood, so that the children could maintain their friendships without it affecting them too much. Because I'd seen other children in the local area be almost shunned by friends who'd been friends literally weeks before because the parents didn't understand another parent choosing a different choice for their child. And I didn't want that for my child because he had very strong connections.
It's difficult
But
at
also
that age
because it
because
is really
you're
so
relying on the
important
parent for that friendship.
absolutely, because they can't just pop and see that. Well,
Yeah.
I think you'd be seen as a bad parent in the UK, not in other countries, if your 5-year-old was just popping to see their friends wherever they fancied. So unfortunately, yes, because of the age, you do have to rely on other parents. So you almost needed them. Obviously, didn't go and tell every parent, but it's the ones where the friendships are important.
Yeah.
And actually, those, other than one of them, all of the other friendships, my son's now still has really, really strong connections with them, including one of his friends who made a decision to go to boarding school for secondary school choice. They still discuss the price of different items from where, because they're in a completely different area. We're in the city in London, and they're in a completely different area that's very rural. And they will have phone calls discussing the price of different items in the shops, which I can't think of anything more boring. But it engages for a long conversation, and they discuss how that affects some economy and stuff like that. And I'm like, how can you get a whole discussion about the economy from a packet of Maltesers?
The brain of a
But they manage it.
teenager.
Yes, they manage it. So, but because obviously my son's friends were prepared and he was prepared, my son quite happily told the school teachers that he's not coming back after the next half term. He's having his birthday party with all his friends coming in the half term, and then he's not coming back. But what resulted then, which actually really upsets me, and it's why I'm so adamant to people to not give schools advance notice. But anyway, I didn't actually give the school advance notice. My son and his friends gave the school advance notice. They took my son to the side and they directly told, and this is the pastoral care person, and bear in mind he was under the supposed to be under the ELSA programme. They very rarely had staff to do that. They took him aside and told him, your mum is making a mistake forcing you out of school. You'll have no friends. Now, luckily, my son has a very literal brain.
Mm-hmm.
So he just looked at them and was like, so why such and such stopping taekwondo? Why are they moving house? Because they have to walk past my house to get home. But now he's older, he realises how wrong that was. Because actually, my son left before his 6th birthday. He was there when he was 4 and 5. So we're talking a child who's 5 years old being pulled aside and told he'll have no friends. The bit they missed is it was my son's decision to be home educated. It was his decision to go to school. It was his decision to be home educated. My husband wasn't on board with home education. And so he had to cut a deal with my husband that he would ensure he would maintain his English and maths at the level of his school peers or above. My husband didn't really care about anything else, but that was my husband's condition on supporting home education, is that my son cut that deal with him, that he had to agree to have his English and maths, which actually doesn't worry me, because actually that has made it quite a lot easier as we've moved on, because that was the condition. And then also for my son, he wanted to maintain being home educated, so he was motivated to keep those bits up, and he's well above in maths now anyway, and massively more than he would be if he was in school. He'd have been bored. But it wasn't just that. They then pulled him aside, other teachers pulled him aside, and they would question about, what were you doing? What's home education? What's it? Which was just not necessary.
Or appropriate
They
for
even
that
phoned
age
me.
child.
Yes, precisely. This isn't a teenager. This is a child. And it could have just been a parental decision, which actually they don't have a right to interfere there either.
Yeah.
But in this particular case, actually, my child had a period of time he was unwell, and he'd actually said, well, in the weeks I was off school after my operation, I did more learning in those weeks than I do at school anyway. So, straight out of the mouth of a child. But they rang me also on the last day when they received the dereg letter. They rang me, the receptionist knows me very well. My son was one of those. It was a running joke at my workplace. He hadn't had a phone call by lunchtime on Monday. Had they locked my son in a cupboard, because he was always injuring himself. Bearing in mind he left school before the age of 6, he had to have his face stitched up because he managed to catch it on an arts thing and cut it all open. He's had to have the back of his ear glued, all sorts of stuff. So it was a running joke at work that, if he hasn't injured. So therefore I had a good relationship with the receptionist. And I remember the receptionist ringing me, bearing in mind this is his last day at school, asking me to come in for a meeting with the head teacher after the half term. And I was like, but why am I going to have a meeting? I've made my decision. Well, in case we could do anything differently. And I laughed, and the receptionist laughed, because they know me quite well. I was like, don't you think that conversation, could have been a year ago, 6 weeks ago? It's a bit late now. I've made my mind up, and I know my child has told everyone he's going. And she laughed as well, and she's like, yes, but the head teacher told me I had to ring. And I was like, no, I realise that, but if you can, I said, you can tell whatever choice words you like and attribute them to me, but my answer is no. You can choose how you convey that. And then came out, within days of being home educated, his night terrors had gone. So he had been waking up at night with night terrors. Within days of coming out of school, those night terrors had gone. And the happy, dancing, skippy child was back, which was still there during reception. He had an amazing reception teacher, but it did, as year one went through, start of year two, he lost his spark, and that came back completely.
So one of the things that
now,
I'm asking everyone that we're going to talk to for this, did you feel that you needed a period of time to de-school? Did he need a period of time, or was that quite a quick process?
See, the thing is, because we were going to be completely child-led and he already had an idea what he wanted to do anyway, and because my original plan had been to home educate, and because he was so young as well, he wasn't quite entrenched with the school ideas anyway.
I've met your son, and I don't think anything could entrench into him if he didn't agree with it.
Yes, so I think the easier element for us was because he never sort of bought into those school rules that he didn't see any sense to.
Yeah.
Because it was they stole my brakes because they stopped running games. It's the not being able to go to the toilet. So the bits of being able to be himself, it was a very quick adjustment for him because he already, certain things, he just became an extension. So he already did taekwondo 3 times a week. He already did hip hop dance class. He already did musical instrument club. So all that happened then, we just let it be naturally. Because of our commitment to dad with English and maths, it's like, well, okay, pick what you want to be doing for that. So we just went to the library. But so we didn't officially de-school as such, but then we didn't start a structured program at all. What we did is we made a plan as a family every Sunday. So every Sunday we just got the calendar out and went, okay, what do we have to do this week, whether it's medical appointments or thing, and what else would we like to fit in? And pretty much for the first, I'd say 2 years, that's just how we ran. We didn't put this and this, and then obviously he'd try groups out. If he liked them, we'd go to them. If he didn't, we've got a rule of 3 because his brain, just anything new he doesn't like. Not because he doesn't like it. It's just, it's too new. So we have to put in place what's called the rule of 3. So he goes the first time, he will always say he hates it. The second time, he'll still hate it. But now he knows the rules because he has to observe everything for ages to understand the rules. That's just how his brain works. And then the third time, he'll look at me. If I'm like, oh yeah, we're not coming back, he'll look at me, Mum, why wouldn't I come back? I love it here. Or he's quite clear he doesn't want to come back. But in his own brain, he doesn't recollect those other 2 weeks where he adamantly didn't want to go. Because the third time, now he knows where the place is. Now he knows the rules. Now he knows who's going to be there. Now he can just enjoy it. And so we've been pretty much free flowing until he puts requests. So he actually quite likes academics and he likes outside.
How old is he now?
He's literally just turned 13. He's a teenager, but he's decided from a young age he wants to be an engineer. And because he wants to be an engineer, he quite often, if he'll come and tell me that, oh, I've seen this about this is on science, can we go to that? And then we'll see if we can do it. And I remember when he wanted to go to the Space Museum day, which I couldn't get off work, ringing Grandad who'd retired, and do you fancy going up to Leicester? And it's like, yeah, okay then. So it's very, very him led. So even though he does quite a lot of academics and he loves languages, but not English, he adamantly was telling him when he was born in the wrong country. He doesn't believe he should have to do English. However, he quite likes Arabic, he quite likes Spanish, quite likes French. He liked Polish for a little while, but he's sort of gone off that now. but it's very much led by what he wants to do.
Yeah.
With the bit in the background, he will remind me if I don't get him the right resources for maths and science stuff that he wants to be an engineer. So we're probably semi-structured now, whereas we started off very, very free, but around his activities that he didn't want to give up that he was already doing.
But that's a
And he definitely needs help.
child-led structure. He's
Yes.
wanted that structure.
Yeah. This thing he's wanted certain things to be. I have my taekwondo friends, I have my dance friends, I have my music friends. They need to be in their boxes where I see them. So yes, it is very much led around him. And now he wants to do academics. So this year I've had to actually pay some tutor bits, but that's because he wants to do, there's 2 GCSEs that he specifically wants to do. And so he wants to do his business studies GCSE, but he wants to do his business studies GCSE and set up his own business at the same time. And it's those technical terms around the business studies that he just wants to make sure because my son doesn't believe, he doesn't do anything to get a pass.
Yeah.
If he decides he's doing an exam, he's doing the exam.
Yeah.
So whenever he puts his mind to something, it's not, if he's doing it just because he's interested, that's different. But if he says, I want to do this, he wants to get the top grades.
Yeah.
So if I can't get him the resources at the local library, if he can't Google and find the right YouTube bits and things, or it in the right technicality for him to understand it, because he self-studies a lot, then he requests. So it is one where this year I've had to actually bother to cough up for a tutor, because I don't understand the technical terms around that because I'm not interested in it. But he then commits to it, and bearing in mind he hates reading in English, as I've said before, but he does maintain. He does sit, I got him a reader pen, and he does sit and read the 2 chapters every week because he wants to get a good grade in the exam. So it is still child-led, even though he's added some academic structure in now.
What do you think the future holds for him?
I think he's going to achieve what he wants to achieve. So he wants to travel. And he wants to be a taekwondo master. And he wants to be a civil engineer. He's got 3 different specialities he keeps flipping between, but they're quite consistent. He's already researched what universities he'd like to go to. He's got a top 3. The first one's not even in the UK, but he's worked out that they accept sports scholarships, so he just needs to be good at sport.
Okay.
And as he does do quite a few sports, it's unfortunate he's had some issues with his leg recently, but hopefully that will heal enough that he can get back to his sports. But yes, so he's looked, so they do sports scholarships for people from other countries. So he's already sort of worked out that one. But if that doesn't work out, he's got the next 2 to go down. And if that doesn't work out, he's looked at apprenticeships as well, in the areas he's interested in. So, and he'd looked at all of them by the time he was 11, 10, and he regularly just checks to make sure the criteria is the same, and that he's in that trajectory. So he's given me a list of stuff that he has to do and when he has to have done it by. And then he just, at whatever point he feels like it, decides to tell me it's time to get me resources for this or resources for that one. And I tend to get more into trouble if I've not got him enough. Yes, if I haven't got him enough resources.
Oh no, I love it. So if you could describe home education in just maybe 5 or 6 words, your home education, how would you describe it?
Happiness, choice, freedom, curiosity, and life.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for sharing your story and how your son's doing. And maybe we'll catch up next year, do an update for Home Ed Awareness next year, and see how all the kids are doing that we've talked about. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Cheryl.